Hello, everybody. We're going to give everybody a minute or so to come in. We got a lot of registrants for this one, so we just want to give you guys time to get in here.
Welcome. We're storming a little bit on both coasts here. I'm on the northeast, just north of Boston. We got some healthy torrential downpours here. Peggy's out there in the Pacific Northwest. They got 8 inches of snow that I believe is still coming down. Lost power today, so I think her in particular might be a little bit choppy today. So bear with us. Knock on wood, should be fine here. So just bear with us if we have a little bit of glitchiness. So just flagging that ahead of time.
Yeah, for those of you that live in the Pacific Northwest, I have a generator, which is almost like a necessary commodity out here. So that's how I'm even functioning. So it should be good, but just maybe a little choppier. But just some housekeeping items. We love questions, so put them in the Q&A as opposed to the chat. We might ask you, hey, pop this in the chat. We just want to see people's answers. But when you have questions, definitely put them in the Q&A. They get captured, and you can also be anonymous if you so choose. So, and we'll remind you if people forget. So use the Q&A. This webinar is being recorded. So tomorrow you will get an email with the deck, all the slides, the recording, any coupon codes, any offers or anything that we talk about at the end, which we usually have some nice little surprises for our registrants. So that'll all be in the email tomorrow. So don't worry if you have to duck out or to go pick up a child or something comes up. You're going to get.
Although I will say, Peg, I do like the live deals. So we celebrate our live attendees. So let me just tease that there will be a tonight only type of deal, as our loyal followers are accustomed to at this point. But yeah, so you will get, anyways, for those of your peers that couldn't make it, got to duck out early, you'll get the recording slides, etc. tomorrow, but stick around because we got kind of a tonight only deal, which I like to do. So a couple of things before we just dive in or let myself and Peg introduce ourselves very quickly. I actually just came from coaching up the junior Celtics. Okay. My daughter turns 8 tomorrow, as a matter of fact. So we were coaching up the next generation of Celtics fans and players. And I was I was driving back, thinking about kind of what a lot of you folks tell me. I've been doing this almost 20 years. And I would say, as soon as I had Emma, right, almost everybody says, you're going to blink and you're going to be sitting where we are, right? So you're going to be sitting, 10 years from now, she's going to be a senior in high school, and you're going to be, doing where we are now. And I remember when my son was, and I've always been very grateful for that. Like I've always done my best to take that to heart, and because what everybody's saying, what everybody tells me still this day is like, cherish it, embrace it. It's such a sweet time, and they're going to be out of your home in no time. And, I like we all do, right? Take it for granted all the time, but I'm always grateful for that. And it's kind of like helps me recalibrate and be like, you're right. I am going to do my best to not take this for granted. And excuse that sidebar. The reason that I think it's relevant for you all that are listening is that I do my best to echo that sentiment and share it with you all, especially for you all going through this for the first time, that have a class of 2023 graduate. And if you do, just put your class year of your student in the chat, the graduating class of your student, your college student to be here, because you're at the halfway point of this process in some ways, of a lot of you, of senior year admissions applications, financial aid applications. And you get so lost in that you kind of forget the fact that, oh shit, my kid's going to be out of the house forever, maybe, right? In some ways, months from now, less than a year from now. So I just kind of like to share that right back at people in a very positive way, to say like, yes, this is incredibly overwhelming, stressful, all of that. And it is, but try to cherish the fact that this is kind of the last year. Don't lose sight of that. So I know it's easy for me to say. Peg has walked that walk, right? She's been through it. She sent twins off to college, so she can relate to this in a way that I can or cannot, right? I can just kind of through empathy. But anyways, I just kind of want to share that advice, just like reset. Like, we're going to get you coached up nice tonight. We're going to have you understand how scholarships work and this whole thing works. You're going to know more when you leave than you came in, but I kind of wanted to start on that note because it just kind of hit me as I was leaving practice there, and Emma's birthday tomorrow. So anyways, I'm Matt Carpenter. We're College Aid Pro. I don't want to take too much time on the rambling on here, but Peg, why don't you introduce yourself, and then we'll talk about why people, the content of why people showed up tonight.
Yeah. So Peg Keough, I've been doing this just like Matt for a long time, over a decade, and I had a background in financial planning. And as Matt said, I got into this because my kids, I have twins, and everybody's putting in their weather reports, and now we're getting all the kid reports. So it's awesome. And I went through this with my two, and what Matt said, even though he's not pulling from experience, he's just spot on. And you're going to be waving goodbye at that dorm before you know it. And I get choked up when I talk about it, and I'm even done with it because I remember it so clearly. So yeah, that's a big part of what we do. We're trying to help you understand this process, and there's so much kind of needless stress. It is stressful, but some of it doesn't have to be as stressful. So the more you know, the easier it's going to be. So there's a lot of 2023 parents in here. So we're going to be talking about private scholarships for part of this, and what role we think they should play. But we're also going to give you a little overview of where the other free money is coming from, because all these colleges are on sale. And so we've got some parents with underclassmen too. So this should be hugely valuable for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. So they're the happy couple. There they are, Peg and myself. And so for those of you that have not already, we nudged you this afternoon to say, set up your account, right? mycap.collegeaidpro.com. Peg will put that in the chat right now. But if you have not set up your account yet, do that now. So you can follow along tonight, because to me, for most people, their first question is like, where do we start? Where do we even begin? This is the answer to that question. It doesn't cost you anything. You set up a free account. The first thing is to do is tell you, what's my financial aid eligibility? Am I going to get any? How much? At which colleges? Is my kid going to be eligible for scholarships? How much? At which colleges? And that's a great place to start the process. There's a lot more in there, and we'll kind of be in and out of the platform itself tonight. But if you haven't already, get your account set up, because I think you'll get more out of tonight, because we're going to talk about how this works on a macro level, but we want you to leave here with a good understanding of like, what's your go forward plan, right? What's on a micro level, how's this going to work for your family? What should you be doing after you leave here tonight? So, okay. So, Peg, I'll pass it off to you, and you can kind of, and just for context, guys, we know everybody's here tonight to talk about scholarships. I promise that's going to be the focal point, but it's relevant to zoom out a little bit first and talk about how this thing works overall. And then we'll get into, what you all showed up to learn about tonight.
Okay. So yeah, high level overview of this. And I kind of just hinted to this. So all of the colleges are basically on sale. And tonight we're not going to focus on need-based aid, but the bucket that you see on the far left on this slide, the need-based grants, that is a source of free money. So just put that in the back of your mind. We're going to do other webinars that might be applicable to you. When you set up your MyCAP account, you'll see very quickly based on your EFCs if it is. So that's one bucket. But what we're going to focus on is the merit-based scholarships, because that's a huge source of free money. And for people that maybe don't have need-based eligibility, need-based aid eligibility. And then we're going to also focus on the private scholarships. The private scholarships don't come from the colleges. These buckets are what come from the colleges. So these discounts come in the form of need-based grants, merit-based scholarships, and then what we call self-help. And this is loans and work study. So it's not free money, but it is something that can cut the cost of college. You just have to work for it, or you have to repay it. But it's part of a lot of people's strategies. So it's not a bad thing if it's a reasonable amount of debt. Okay, so the need-based aid, very quickly, there's a very simple equation. cost of attendance, which is, we usually call it sticker price. That's MSRP, basically, tuition and fees, room and board, books, personal expenses, travel. No control over that. It's been going up for decades, as we all know. They subtract what's called an expected family contribution. That's why you're submitting financial aid forms. So all you 2023 parents, Matt and I would both tell you, we hope you've submitted those. We hope you've gotten them in by the deadline. There's some deadlines still coming up. So not all the deadlines are passed by any means, right? But you want to get that in. That's how they calculate that. Okay. This expected family contribution, that's what they think you can afford for a year, right or wrong. You might not agree. They take the difference between the cost of attendance and the EFC, and that's how they figure out if you have need. Some people, a lot of people that I've worked with and Matt through the years, have high EFCs. They're 100,000, they're 95,000, and schools, thank God, don't cost that much. So there's no need there, but that doesn't mean that there isn't free money, right? There's private scholarship money, but there's also merit scholarship money, which we're going to touch on.
Yeah. So, when it comes to private scholarships, right, one of our main talking points around them is the fact that of all the money that's available, of this whole pie of discounts, financial aid, scholarships, whatever you want to call it, about 4% comes from private scholarships. So it's not a massive resource in the grand scheme of things. Now, there's a right and a wrong way to go about it, and that's what we're going to kind of dive into tonight. But I don't want to dismiss the biggest pool of resources that's out there by far. It's not even close. And that's scholarships that are given from the colleges themselves. Like, that should be our focus. Private scholarships in some ways is an afterthought, right? And so I want people focused on where we're going to get the biggest discounts. And the other thing here is that doesn't mean you have to have an incredible student, right? That's top of their class and all of this, right? There are many schools that will give merit-based scholarships literally to every single accepted student, and they're meaningful discount. So everybody's going to get this slide deck, so I'm not going to spend too much time unpacking it. I want to go look at some actual case studies here. But the big takeaway here is, let's go apply to some schools that we know are very likely to offer us merit-based discounts, regardless of our family's financial situation, regardless of our financial aid eligibility. And the only thing I'll skip down to here is the fact that a lot of these schools will compete with one another. Okay, so we want to apply to competing colleges and leverage them against one another. That is a part of this puzzle. It's an important part of this puzzle. And we'll end tonight talking about specifically how we do that, but it's relevant when it comes to maximizing our odds for getting the max amount of scholarships from these colleges. So I'm going to stop sharing just for 1 second while I dive into our platform here and we look at an actual case study. And this is for those of you that already have your account set up. This looks very familiar to you, right? This is MyCAP, right? This is kind of our technology that is the foundation of everything that we do, really. But very quickly at the top, Peg talked about this, the fact that an EFC, a dollar amount, is going to be assigned to your family. Further complicating this already complicated situation, there's 3 different EFCs that any given college can use. Most of the public schools, just about all of them, use the federal EFC. Okay, and a lot of private colleges do as well. Overall, most colleges use this methodology. A lot of the private schools, right, Amherst, NYU are 2 examples we're looking at here, use either the institutional or consensus methodology. Okay, the reason why there's such a huge difference between these 2 figures, there's a couple of variables, but the big one is the fact that this particular family, they own their home, not outright, but they have a decent amount of equity. And a lot of these colleges, NYU, for example, Boston College in my backyard, they consider your home equity to be fair game, right? Whereas colleges that use either the federal or consensus methodology, they either don't consider it at all if we're talking about federal schools, or very little if we're talking about consensus schools. So I was speaking in Greek for a second there, I'm sure, to a lot of you. But the big takeaways are this. We don't want you concerned with the sticker prices at these colleges. We want you focused on, what is your net cost going to be? What are they going to expect you to pay? Are we going to get merit-based scholarships? Are we going to get need-based financial aid? Is it going to be both, right? Let the platform do the work for you. Okay. But for right now, I want to focus really largely and primarily on merit-based scholarship. So if we look at a school, for example, here, and this is a well, probably the best way to do it is this. So if I go into the school search tab, right, specifically the advanced school search, I'm able to figure out, okay, based on my kid, what schools should we be looking at with things that they're concerned about? So let's say you got a kid that wants to be relatively close to home. This is a family from the Boston area, and they prefer smaller schools, and they're thinking about majoring in business, right? And then we can sort that based on a number of criteria here, but the big one being for tonight's talking point, scholarships, right? So you can use this just to figure out what schools are going to are very likely to give my kid the most in actual scholarship dollars, right? So maybe Wheaton College wasn't on the list, but if they're going to give us 40 grand, we might consider that. Okay. Or maybe, we were interested in UVM, but that's a very expensive state school. But hey, we're up in Burlington, Vermont, and let's check out St. Michael's College. If they're likely to give us a $29,000 discount, that's pretty relevant. So this is, in our opinion, we're biased, but I also can say this with a straight face, I think is the best resource to figure out which colleges are likely to give us the most in merit-based scholarships. And again, that's going to be some of the most meaningful ways in which we are going to get scholarships. So Peg, I don't know if you want to touch on anything else kind of while I'm in here, or we're going to be back when we look at the private scholarship and appeal section.
Yeah, I mean, you know me, I could go into my stuff, but I don't know if that's really relevant to tonight. So if we have extra time, we can do it later, but
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. If we have extra time, we will do it later. And give me a minute, guys, while I just jump back into our deck here. And again, we have a couple slides here that we're not going to do a deep dive into, but everybody's going to receive these. And, we're going to put our points of emphasis on what we think is most important here. So I think, Peg, when we chopped it up, I had the beginning and then I tossed it over to you.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So kind of what most of you showed up for tonight, that's to learn about private scholarships, right? And I think this is a good place to start, of just kind of high level, who, what, when, where, how does this work, right? Who should be, and I'd like to start, who should be responsible for this? Now, obviously this is not, a black and white recommendation, and every family dynamic is different. But I think the way that you kind of divide and conquer here is that the student should be in charge of these applications for these scholarships themselves, right? And usually it's very comparable to the college admissions process, where you have the admissions piece of the puzzle, and then there's the financial piece of the puzzle, right? The kids are doing the Common App. Usually the parent or parents are doing FAFSA, CSS profile, etc. It's a similar breakdown here, right? So the students are going to be the ones that are in charge of again, in our opinion, of completing these applications, providing the essays. Now, they should be able to, at a minimum, repurpose the essay and essays they've already used for admissions, right? It's not like we're starting from scratch here. A lot of the heavy lifting should be done already just through the what we've already completed or finalizing in the admissions process. And I think in most cases, it makes sense for the parents to complete the financial requirements for those scholarships that do require the FAFSA or kind of some more detailed financial information for the particular family. Right now, I think I like to kind of set the table here for families to say, well, what's a good end result, right, for what we can realistically expect through private scholarships. Now, this is probably a little bit pessimistic. I think if you put an honest effort in, nothing is guaranteed, of course, but I'm saying if you put an honest effort towards this, you should be able to obtain between $1,000 and $3,000, right? That should kind of be where the bar is set, right? I think it's quite possible to do better than this, but for families to think that this is going to or significantly change the landscape of the overall cost of sending your kids to college, it's probably not the right expectation, right? I think that's where we run up against a lot of myths where people say, hey, we heard there's millions of dollars out there. You just got to know where to look for it. And there's a hidden treasure chest somewhere. And believe me, we tell you where it is if there was one, right? So this is kind of how we look at it. Like, at least do the bare minimum here. And you should be able to set your watch to obtaining between $1,000 and $3,000, right? And we kind of look at it like saying, put at least 10 hours of work in. You're all but certainly guaranteed to get this range, okay? If you do that, and then when we kind of chop that up in terms of an per hour job, especially if we're talking about the student, that's a good use of time, right? But to expect too much more than this is we don't want to set ourselves up for that, is what I would say.
Well, you want to realize that's for freshman year, right? That's for freshman year. So if you really want to make this, you've got a $20,000 gap and you need to have that every year. Well, this is really a side part-time job. Maybe some of the parents help, the child helps, whatever you guys decide as a family. Because the money is out there, but you got to hustle. You got to hustle hard to consistently, put out 50 applications and get whatever back, 500 here, 2,000 here, and they usually aren't recurring. We have a slide in here for one that's kind of the creme de la creme of these puppies that junior and sophomore parents should definitely be paying attention for that one. But yeah, that's part of the deal with this stuff.
No, it's a great point, right? I mean, most of these are not renewing. This is kind of a one and done type of deal. This just applies for freshman year, right? Now, it's, again, these bottom two things, it's a similar concept, especially if you've been following along with Peg and I. It's like every college is different. Every scholarship is different deadlines, different requirements. The onus is on you to figure out, when are these due? What do they need from us? And make sure that you're checking those boxes. By and large, the due dates are not until 2023, right? And I'm talking to the class of 2023 particular. So by and large, you're not going to have deadlines until the spring, right? Some in January, some in February, but most of them March, April, May. There are some that are due in December. So that's why we're kind of, this is the time of year that it makes sense for us to start coaching you all up on how this part of the process works, right? So a couple of tips, like we have kind of like 5 like main tips when it comes to private scholarships that we want to make sure that everybody takes home. Number one, of this private scholarship pie, the biggest piece of that is and most reliable piece is going to come locally. Okay. I don't care what high school you go to. I don't care what town you live in. There are local scholarships that you are eligible to at least apply for, right? Just based on the town you live in, just based on the high school that you go to, okay? This is the easiest, most reliable place to obtain private scholarships. So what you need to do, kind of the action item here, and it's early in the process, but you need to contact your school counselor, right? Contact the school counselor, ping them and say, hey, we want to make sure we're all over the local private scholarships, right? What do we need to do? What are the due dates? That's usually communicated pretty well. It's usually not till after the new year. So they're probably going to say, hey, sit tight. We're going to talk about that, around February break, something like this, but you want to be all over that. So make sure that you're paying attention. And the big reason is too, on average, about 33% of high school seniors even throw their hat in the ring for these scholarships, right? They're trying to give this money away. So just kind of by odds alone, you're in a small pool, right? Your odds are good that if we applied all these local ones, we're probably going to get something, right? Especially knowing that most of the high school seniors are not going to do that. Okay. So again, that's something that you want to be all over. Most of the private local scholarships, they actually cut the checks. They actually award this money later in the spring going into summer. If you have the option, you want to ask for a personal check as opposed to that being sent to the school. We'll talk about why specifically before we cut out tonight, but that's something else that we want you to have in your back pocket. Obviously, we're again kind of biased here, but I also know there's a lot of national scholarships that anybody can apply to. You just got to complete the requirements. We've got just about all of those baked into our software, right? And I'll kind of show you very quickly how that works. Now, this is a you know, a paid part of our platform, so you do have to. Sorry, let me just make sure that I share here. You do have to upgrade for this. This isn't included in part of the free part of our platform, so you do have to upgrade to get access to this. Now, like I told you tonight, when we leave here, we'll give you a special coupon code to give you a significant discount. But our rack rate, so to speak, is $149 to have access to all the bells and whistles of our technology here. If you can't afford that, right, it's $149 for the year. You just got to send us an email. Send us an email at, I think that's the info@collegeaidpro.com, right? Peg,
No, support.
Is that support? So send us an email at support@collegeaidpro.com to say, I would love access to your platform, but I can't afford $149 a year. And I think we're discounting it down to like $115 tonight or something like that. But and we'll get you on here for free, right? We don't vet that. We take it at face value. So obviously, please don't take advantage. But if you're a family that's listening and can't afford that, you send an email to us, just say that, and we'll get you on here. Okay. But in this private scholarship, right, you'll see this, right? We were in here earlier, and then there's this specific database for private scholarships. And what we're doing here is it's kind of like a filter system, right? So if I live in Massachusetts, okay, and you know, I got a kid that wants to go study accounting, right away, it gives me all these things and say, okay, these might be some things that we can, some scholarships that we should target, right? So this is how you want to be efficient and kind of smart with, okay, how do we find out of all these, tens of thousands of scholarships that are out there nationwide, which ones should we be targeting? That's the most efficient way to do it. And again, you're not going to get crushed with spam and all that stuff. So that's why we're pretty confident that's the best way to handle that piece of the puzzle when it comes to leveraging technology specifically. Okay. Our next sorry guys.
And I do want to hit something when you're back in MyCAP again, just because I got a bunch of questions on it. So
yeah, we'll definitely get in there to talk about appeals and sorry for my I'm actually most sorry to Peg because she doesn't like when it gets choppy with navigating between the platform.
Totally fine.
I'm sorry, but Peg, it's what happens when I'm driving here. So we'll, take that up.
I'm used to it.
Yeah, you're used to it, right? And we won't spend time here, right? This is just a very small value add, but as you've probably learned, you are getting smoked with spam, and your inboxes are getting crushed with all these different colleges and scholarships, and it's very hard to sort out what's what. It probably makes sense to create a new email just for private scholarships, so you can kind of start fresh and you kind of dictate that piece of the puzzle. So again, we're not reinventing the wheel here, but it's something that is worthwhile, and you want to be good at it, just like notifications from the colleges about just checking up on any correspondence you're getting from private scholarships as well for those that you're targeting. So Peggy, I'll shut up for a minute.
Okay. Sorry, let me just finish this in here. Okay. One question I just want to answer live that John asked about the data and how frequently it's updated. I just want to, because I'm really proud of what we do, especially on the merit side. I mean, both sides are updated annually, but on the merit scholarship side, we actually have a whole data team that handles both sides, but our data team actually goes to the individual schools, finds out off their website, talks to them. We actually have award letters that are uploaded into our program, and we look at what colleges are awarding. So it's a very proprietary system that we have, and we're constantly updating it. So it's not an annual thing. So I just wanted to answer that live because there's probably other people. And I was deep into Q&A, so I don't even know if you went into the merit scholarships, and if you didn't, I'll take you guys in there so you can see that stuff. But
Yeah, no, I did. I showed them the merit scholarships, but I actually didn't click on the colleges themselves, which will be worthwhile once we get in there.
yeah, we'll do that so that you
I
guys
just showed the advanced search, but but that's a good call. I that was an oversight by me. Just another reminder, guys, and I'm sure some of you just joined us a little bit late. Please put all the questions in the Q&A as opposed to the chat. Okay. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about our tip number 4 here. So, it's always good to get ahead of everything in this process, right? It creates less stress. So if you start early, there are the one thing to keep in mind is there are scholarships, and I mentioned this earlier when Matt was talking, throughout college. So it's not just a freshman year, find stuff and forget about it. It's throughout school. And I know Matt said a lot of these will be awarded toward the end of your child's senior year if you have a senior right now. But you should definitely be hitting up the counseling office, just anything local. Just have your eyes and ears open. My kids both got scholarships, and they're not nearly as competitive because a lot of kids don't know about them. They don't make the effort. So it's not as hard to get them. It might be $100. It might be $1,000, right? My son got one from like Windermere, the local Windermere. People asked about if their kids don't go to school locally. I don't know that Windermere really cares. If it's a local kid, then, I would tap it. The worst that you can find out is, no, it's not applicable to me. I can't apply, but I would still hunt around in the same way that we're suggesting. But let me get back to the slide here. You don't want to miss deadlines, just like financial aid forms, everything else in this process. So really dial that in. It can be laborious if you're applying to 10 different scholarships and they all have different deadlines and different requests of what you need to send in with different essays, but you gotta track it. So help your kid get organized. They're going to need to learn that skill for college anyways, right? They got to get dialed in. If you could make a spreadsheet or somewhere where you're in an organized way tracking it. And again, that's a great skill for kids to get. And we had a couple questions about this, and we're really passionate about complete the financial aid forms. Definitely the FAFSA. A lot of these private scholarships require it, right? Even if it's a purely merit-based scholarship, which a lot of them are, they still want to have a FAFSA on file. This is just one of many reasons to complete the FAFSA. So if you haven't done that and you have a high EFC and you're thinking, why should I even do that? We're not going to get into all the other reasons. Another one is for merit. You sometimes have to have it on file. So you're leaving a ton of money on the table, potentially if you have a child who's a good student as well. So get that FAFSA in and make sure you know which schools require the FAFSA and the CSS, because if you don't submit the CSS by the deadline, that's how they're going to give out their endowment money, those buckets that I talked about at the beginning. So you got to get that dialed in. We will tell you that in MyCAP. You just click on a button in financial aid and you'll know exactly what form. So you don't have to wonder and be stressed about that. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a minute. And just, with everything, with the state programs, you just want to be dialed in on the deadlines. And again, if your child's kind of overwhelmed with this, help them, have them own it, but help them set up an organized way to keep track of all this stuff. It's a good skill building. Okay, we got a couple of questions about this, and never mind. It's so funny how the graphics move around here, but anyways. There is this concept called scholarship displacement, and a couple people have asked about this. So what happens is, and this is why I'm not a huge advocate for saying, hey, let's go find a bunch of private scholarships to fill a gap. You really want to build your list looking at schools that are going to discount the price for your child, for potentially several reasons, for need, for their backgrounds, their academic backgrounds, whatever the reasons are. That's what you want to grab. Like Matt said earlier, 4% of all this free money is private scholarships. That doesn't mean they don't have a place. They definitely do. But in my opinion, it's to fill the gap. Hopefully you're going to be expected to pay a certain amount. Say it's $35,000. Then the college comes in with a $20,000 discount. Well, there's still like an $8,000 gap that you're going to have to pay unless you figure out some other way to pay it. That's when the private scholarships come in. So what can happen, and it's not right, but it is what it is if, especially if you're getting need-based aid, if you or your child, you make all this effort, you get some money, and the school gets it, right? I know Matt's saying ask them to write a check. That's the best case scenario. Most awards, if they're not tiny, they're going to say, where are you going to college? And they're going to send it right there. And they might even say half for first semester, half for second. So I'll give you an example of what scholarship displacement is. I had a family a couple years ago. She got into Stanford. Stanford meets 100% of need. So this family was paying whatever, $40,000. Stanford came in and filled the rest of it between work study, loans, and need-based grants out of their endowment. Well, she got a $15,000 Girl Scout scholarship, which is awesome, right? Well, so they're going to send that money to Stanford, and Stanford's going to say, oh, well, all right, you got another 15K. Well, we're going to pull back what we gave you. They don't say, oh, that's 15,000 off of your EFC. That's what they should say, because you've earned it. Your child's earned it. That should come off your bottom line, but it doesn't in most states. So I got the Girl Scouts. I said, get them to split it up over 2 years. And then basically what most schools do, if they're being ethical, they'll take the loans off, which is great. Get rid of those loans, get rid of the work study. But in my example, there was still some money that they lost in Stanford grants. So that's what scholarship displacement is. And I think parents get really hot under the collar if they don't realize that, and you do all this effort. And then it's like, well, I'm not even ahead of the game. You can be ahead of the game for sure. Doesn't happen very often with merit. If you get a Dean scholarship for $20,000. I mean, Matt, you can chime in. I've never seen them do it with merit, but they do it with need-based aid all the time. They just do. So you've got to realize that it's not a bad thing. It's just knowledge is power, right? So if you understand that, and you have need-based aid, you can look at the packages. If it's a school like Stanford, you're probably going to lose a little bit of. You can appeal it and say, hey, that doesn't make sense to me, but ultimately the college is going to do what they want. But that's what that concept of scholarship displacement is.
It's a bummer. It's frustrating. It doesn't mean don't do it though, right? I mean, it's
just something to understand. Yeah. And a lot of schools, even if you're getting need-based aid, they don't, most schools can't afford to be Stanford and meet 100% of need. So they might meet 85% of need. So you still have a gap there. So many times it's a wonderful thing. And if you get a check directly, like Matt's suggesting, then you got the check, right? I just find the bigger ones, they don't do that. They don't hand Johnny a giant check, but the smaller ones, you might be able to get them to do that. So this is a scholarship. I don't know how I found out about this years ago. It might be a family. It was for their son, in memory of their son. It might be somebody from out here, but this is kind of like the flagship killer private scholarship. It's for 4 years. It's, as it says here, it's not for room and board, but it's for tuition and fees, which is the biggest chunk of most of the costs of attendance. And it's for all 4 years. It's not easy to get. But they only accept like 3,000 apps, and they give it out to like 20 kids. You have to have a 3.7, and there's a lot of paperwork. For senior families, this isn't even on the table, but for because the deadlines are way past. The deadlines are May and September of the beginning of senior year. And I always push families, get it in May. So you will get this slide. But this is, if your child has a 3.7, you just go look at the website and see if you think your child even has a chance, because this is a wonderful private scholarship. This is not the norm though, right? And the other biggies that we all know, Coca-Cola and all these, they're great scholarships. They're just extremely competitive. So most high school kids don't have enough time on their hands. So you really want to sit down and say, what are the chances of getting this? And the hours we're going to spend applying, maybe our time's better spent looking at other private scholarships or other avenues to get help.
Yep. No, it's a good call. And to me, another one of the takeaways is, even though we stated earlier, because it's true, most of these private scholarships are a one and done freshman year only type of deal. The renewable ones are out there, right? I live in, like I mentioned, the top here on the North Shore of Massachusetts. The town next to me is Marblehead, Mass, which is a somewhat affluent community up here. They have a couple amazing, renewable 4 years. So again, you want to make sure. That's another reason why I'm always telling people, start local, start with your community, because number one, that's where we're most likely to get the biggest discounts, and number two, the odds are in our favor. So if we have time, we'll talk about this very quickly. There's some massive FAFSA changes coming starting next year. The biggest one that I'm focused on, our team is focused on, are right now the formula accounts for families that have more than one kid in school at once. So I actually saw, Peg, when you said you had twins at the beginning, there's at least a half dozen people right away that are going through that right now, right? That have multiples that they're sending off. But even if you don't have twins, but they're going to be overlapping at some point, the right now the formula accounts for that and gives a very meaningful discount, as it should, because you have more than one kid at college at once. That's going away, and it's effectively going to double the cost of college for a lot of these families, right? Not at every school, not for every family, but for a ton of you, it's going to double the cost of college, right? So we're very passionate about this. Hopefully it's coming through. We've started a petition. We have almost 70,000 signatures. We need to get 100,000 to have a chance to be able to stop it. These are what the folks on Capitol Hill are telling us. If we get that 100,000, then we get in front of decision makers. But so anyways, I anytime we get in front of people, we try to share that, because we need your help, right?
All right, I just put it in the chat, the link to that.
Thank you. So this is kind of the last thing that we want to coach you up on. We'll get back in the platform in a minute here tonight. But the next part of this process for you class of 2023 folks, right? It's like we finalized our list of colleges, or we're finalizing it. We got the admissions applications off. We got the FAFSA and CSS profile and institutional financial aid applications off, right? Or we're finalizing them or getting ready to complete them, right? Depending on the schools and the deadlines. And then we're in this holding pattern. During the holding pattern is when we start this process of applying, or at least investigating, private scholarships, right? And then what happens is we find out you've been accepted to this college, and here's what we can offer you from a financial standpoint. But we don't want to accept the first offer, right? That's a big mentality that we want to have. And Peg and I will spend a ton of time coaching you up on this. And if you have it handy, Peg, we're doing a particular webinar, just like like tonight. I think it's like 3 weeks from now, the middle of December, focus just on this part of the process. Once we get an offer from a school, how do we go back to them and get more money, right? What is that process? What are the do's and don'ts? What are the expectations?
How do you understand your award letters? I just put it in the chat.
So there's a method to that madness. And I'm not going to get granular tonight, because we are going to get granular a couple of weeks from now. Register for that webinar, because I think it's an important part of the process. It's my favorite part of the process. I love going back to these colleges and beating them up for more money. And I talked about one thing that I hit on here is the fact that we always want to apply, or we hit on earlier, to competing schools, right? So showing these offers from other schools that are competitors that gave us more money, and leveraging them against one another. So I don't want to distract too much, because I know that's not what we're here to talk about tonight, but it is the time of year where at a minimum, we want to start teasing that. And I'll kind of show you how we, one of the ways that we coach folks up on that in the platform. But Peg, before we go there, I know you said you wanted to look at something specifically.
Yeah, I just wanted to show everybody. A couple of people were asking, is there a place to get a list of all of them? And that's actually in our V2. Great question, and we've already thought of it, and we know that'll be great, and it'll be coming at some point. But all of the merit scholarships are within each one of these schools. So if you click on the more info button, any of the schools, and then all you do once you're in here is scroll down, you will see all the merit scholarships. We might not have projected one, which means that the college, whatever the college told us that they look at to give out these awards, we put in. If they're not super transparent or not, we might not have clicked anything. That doesn't mean that there's nothing to look at. You want to review all those scholarships and see if there's any that could be in the ballpark. You also want to look, and if your child has a 31 on the ACT and they could do some prep and get it up to 32, you might see that there could be a jump in scholarship money of like $4,000 a year just by getting their ACT score up a little. So it's, I mean, I'm a planner by background, right? This is your planning tool to get in here and search around and do planning, right? It's a great way to do that. Somebody asked, how do you know about competing schools? We have data in here under the admissions. If you click on the little admissions caret, it tells you, hey, these are the middle 50% of those kids. There's 2 schools where those numbers are similar. They're kind of competing schools, especially if they're in the same part of the country. They're going to be competing schools. Matt always talks about WPI and RIT, right? They're majorly competing schools. Out where I am, you've got Willamette, University of Portland. These guys are close by and they compete for students. So I just wanted you to see that merit piece. Can you just go to the affordability really quick, Matt? Because that ties into, I know you
love your affordability, but hold on,
let me into this.
Yes, no, I know. I promise I will give you your moment, Peggy. But it's relevant here because just to add to that, right? Like, because I think it's a great question we get all the time. Like, how are we supposed to know who competes with who, right? Another way that I like to do a little bit of a cheat code is what athletic division do they play in? Okay, because, and obviously most of you, although we had some questions about athletic scholarships, most of your kids are not thinking about, they're not student athletes, right? They're just going to these colleges. So what does athletic conferences have to do with anything? Well, these schools don't just compete with one another athletically, they compete with one another academically as well, right? I went to a little private school in the Boston area called Stonehill College, right? And we played in a division, and our big rival, right, athletically was Bentley University. And, you know, it's not just athletically, it's academically as well. So I always have families that are focused on Stonehill apply to Bentley and vice versa, just so we can leverage them against one another, right? And it works that same way. So that's a pretty good rule of thumb. Another one is, if you're interested in small liberal arts colleges in the Northeast, well, their competitors are probably small liberal arts colleges in the Northeast, kind of like Peg was saying. But those are 2 decent ways to get an idea of, hey, are these schools competing with one another? But again, it's an important point, right? And it's something that can absolutely reduce your costs here. Yeah, but the other thing I just want to point out here is another school that I put in, and it's, I'm being redundant a little bit here, but we will, if we expect you to get a merit-based scholarship out of school, we're going to tell you that, and we're going to tell you exactly how much we expect you to get, and we're pretty stinking good guys. And if you want the why, then you can look in the admissions tab to figure out, oh, okay, based on my kid's score, that kind of makes sense. And of all the scholarships that they offer, here's the qualifications for each, and here's where we landed according to our projection. So I will get back to your favorite piece of this whole puzzle, Peggy.
Well, and I just want to focus on the one piece. Like, if you click on one of the schools that has a gap, basically we're projecting what the gaps are. Total, we're calling it total loans. You can think of that as a funding gap. That's the piece that can be loans, or it could be private scholarships. So this helps you see, I mean, this is wonderful for many reasons, because it helps you see what the delta is, right? Over 4 years, right? This helps you be able to see, well, if it's almost 50,000, well, you know, that's about 12.5 a year, right? Are we going to do some with loans and maybe try and find $4,000 of private scholarships every year? That's the kind of planning you want to do as parents, so you can sleep at night, because when you're waving goodbye to your child, you want to know, okay, we did our due diligence and we know this is affordable. You don't want to think about it on a year by year basis. I've seen my kids' friends, like kids not go back because parents are like, uh-oh, we can't afford this anymore. It's beginning of junior year. So you don't want to play it that way. It's not a good situation for anybody, but this gives you a good picture of how that looks. We show you in a 1-year view up on the dashboard, but this gets you into the 4-year planning. And that's something we can help you with on a one-on-one basis too, of having your 4-year plan for your schools. So that's all I wanted to touch on. I won't.
No, I think it's important. And the another question we got that I think it's a really good one. I'm glad somebody flagged this. If we get a merit-based scholarship from a school, can we expect that to be there for all 4 years? The answer is yes. Okay, generally speaking, with very few exceptions, if your kid, just like we think at Wheaton, you're going to get $40,000 merit-based scholarship. That's for all 4 years, right? $40,000 per year. Usually, they're telling you you're going to get this merit-based scholarship, but yeah, the student has to maintain a minimum GPA. That's usually kind of how it works, right? And usually that GPA is something that they want it to be attainable, right? They don't want the kid to lose that scholarship. They're just kind of saying, hey, we're going to invest in you and give you this discount. You can't only party when you come here, right? You got to get some work done, take care of business a little bit as well. But that's usually what it's tied to. But assuming the kid holds up their end of the bargain, we can feel confident that that's going to remain there. So the next thing that, again, I just want to tease here because we're stoked about this, right? Super stoked, is what's new this year for us in this platform is that once your acceptance letters start coming back, guys, and you've got into Boston College and you've got your award from Boston College, you can upload it here, right? I'll put in my alma mater here. And, the first thing that we're going to do is translate it and just take our word for it. It's hard to understand these offers. It's hard to translate what's a grant, what's a scholarship, what's 1 year, what's 4 years, what's a loan, what's work study. What am I going to have to pay if my kid goes to the school? We take the guesswork out of that. We tell you this is what the offer actually is, brass tacks. But more importantly, we tell you, is this a good award? Did BC give you a good award? Should you go back and ask for more? How much, right? So I am, knock on wood, if everything goes perfect, it'll be live by the end of this calendar year. It hasn't gone perfect to date. That's kind of the nature of the beast with the technology. But anyways, it'll be soon, right? It'll be for you, class 2023. You guys will be able to put your awards in here. We'll translate them and tell you how well did you do, right? Can we go back to Boston College? And last year, and we've done this traditionally, I'm picking on Boston College. I can do that because they're in my backyard here and they're an amazing institution. They don't need my help, but they traditionally under award people, right? And last year, all the time they were giving people 10,000 less bucks than they should have. And we go back and say, hey, you're based on your business model and our situation, you gave us $10,000 less. And they say, you're right, here we go. Nobody knows that. Nobody knows that unless you are an unbelievably informed consumer or you're in our platform here. So anyways, I just want to make sure that I kind of float that feature ahead of time here because again,
and even if that technology isn't in there, you can very easily just pop those numbers in, and then you've got the side-by-side comparison. And we do tons of consults on that. It's a great return on your investment to get some help in that area for sure. So
good call.
Yeah, so the merit scholarships come from the colleges, right? That's their endowment money. So it's school specific. If you get a dean scholarship from Willamette, that's not going to transfer to University of Portland. You can talk to University of Portland and appeal, hey, you gave me less or you gave me none, but it doesn't translate. Private scholarships are not school dependent. They come from the outside and roll in. So a bunch of questions on that.
Yeah, great call. Great call. So we'll stick around here for a couple minutes. Certainly, I know we got we're coming up on time here, but a few things I want to talk about, and because always Peg and I's get is that if we've done our job at all, you continue to do something, however that and whatever that looks like for your family, right? But we want you to at least continue to interface with us in one form or another. A great way to do that, if you haven't already, sign up for our office hours. And Peg, if you can pop that in the chat now, because every other Monday, Peg, myself, some of our colleagues, and our colleagues are the director of financial aid at Harvard Medical, director of financial aid at MIT, former director of financial aid at Rutgers, UCLA, Rice, Denison, right? We got some studs on our team. We show up every other Monday for an hour, 7 Eastern time, and it doesn't cost anything. And just we're an open it's a grab bag, right? What questions do you have? Sign up for those office hours, show up. You'll get a reminder. Hey, we have office hours tonight, 7 Eastern time. Ask your questions. We answer them for free. Obviously, we can't answer every question, and some questions are just too much to get too granular on, but that's a great way to interface with us, and it doesn't cost anything. Now
let me share my screen because you've got the wrong deck there, buddy.
Oh, for that one? Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I don't know where you found that one, but that's not the right one.
Well, I was about to I can reshare here, Peggy, because
you got the right one. Okay.
Yes, I have what I want to share, but thank you for catching that. So here's our deal for tonight, guys, right? And this is my recommendation. And you can do this kind of one of, I guess, 3 ways, right? If you want just access to the platform, I just want full access to the platform so I can put unlimited schools in there. I want the private scholarship search engine. I want to do everything that it does. You can do that. It's $149 rack rate. You get 20% off tonight if you upgrade tonight. Use Scholar20 as the coupon code. So when you go to upgrade, use Scholar20 as the coupon code. But what I recommend is, I don't care if you're class 2024, 25, especially if you're class 2023, upgrade to our valedictorian package or book an hour with us. So if you've already upgraded, right, you'll have this option to talk to an expert. It'll say, if you're on the free version, click up here and you say upgrade, or if you haven't created your account yet, create your account, choose valedictorian. Okay. And then when you do that, right, use the Scholar20, you get 20% off. It's $239. You'll get an hour with one of us. It can be me, Peg. Our schedules are pretty tough. We're not super accessible. So you'll have to be super flexible on time. But like I said, our team of experts, you cannot go wrong. And if you do go wrong, if you don't have a good experience, it's 100% refund. We don't, no questions asked. But this gives you full access to the platform for a year, for a full calendar year, and an hour with one of us. So that can include, let us review your financial aid applications, FAFSA, CSS profile. Let's talk about scholarships. Let's talk about competing schools. Let's talk about appeals. If we've already got some offers, or we just want to make sure that we take advantage of this, so when we do get offers, we can book that meeting. That's kind of what you have at your power. And like these guys, like Josh and Ryan, like they're on that side of the fence right now. So they're able to say, here's how to go back to schools like us and get more money, right? It's an unbelievable, I think, opportunity. And again, if you don't get your money's worth, we'll give you a full refund, no questions asked. This is being recorded. You're going to have the recording that says, here's what Matt says. Here's what Matt said at 8:58 Eastern time on 11:30, right? So do that.
It's actually, the coupon code is scholarship 20, not scholar 20.
Yeah. Geez, what a mistake that is. Thank you.
Yeah, because I don't want to get a million emails saying, hey, it's not working. I put it in the chat. So it's just the word scholarship in caps with 20. Okay.
Thank you for flagging that. We got to make sure that we tell our team as well, since I wouldn't know how to change that piece. And then kind of the other option here, guys, it's not for everybody, right? But we have this option that we call Wake Me When It's Over, where you can work with one of us one-on-one, kind of unlimited amount of hours from whenever you hire us until the kid actually moves into the dorm. We complete your financial aid applications. We complete your we're on the front lines doing this appeals process. We kind of take the wheel, so to speak, right? So for families that that sounds like something that you're not a DIYer type of deal and you just want somebody to take over, that's a good investment. Now it's a lot of money, right? Our rack rate is almost $3,000, but with the 20% off, it comes down to $23.99. So that is something that, again, you'll want to take advantage of, and that'll be tonight only. We'll give a discount tomorrow, and it just won't be as generous as 20%. So for that, let me actually put this link in the chat real quick, because if that's something you want to do, or at least want more details on, this is it.
Yeah,
And then
have that generic one. Yeah.
I'm seeing a question about subsequent hours as well. It's if you just buy hours, it's a la carte, and $2.99 is the rack rate. So that's how much,
without a discount. And it's
right.
easy to do once
Yeah.
you've got your account, you just click right in there and you can pick first available. Because remember, deadlines really matter with this stuff. So you want to make sure you've got to wait till the acceptances come in, and then you want to get, and we'll get into detail in a couple of weeks on this, when you get what's called a financial aid award letter that has your whole package on there, need-based, merit, loans, work study, the whole bit. So.
Yep. Yeah. So if we already paid to get an hour with an expert and had the meeting, you have to pay the full amount again to get another hour. You do it outside of the coupon code, right? That's just our.
But we always have coupons flying around almost all the time. So you just have to be coming on our webinars and reading our emails. So
that's true.
And
yeah,
yes,
no,
you can appeal. I'm not going to say the word negotiate, because it's not negotiating when you're ED. Actually, I did one last year and they had another $10,000 a year out of it. It's all about understanding the award and how that school, what their financial aid policy is, and are they under awarding? They do a lot of different stuff. And if you don't understand what's going on, you don't really know how to appeal. But yes, you can appeal. You can appeal any award. The worst that can happen is they just say no, right? They're not going to rescind admission, but we'll show you on the webinar, like, is this a good, where should you maybe not appeal? You probably have better things to do. It's not going to be successful. And then when it is worth your while to appeal, and the best way to do it, like we're going to show you all that stuff.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. And that's what, that's, I mean, again, we're pretty well versed here, and we try to, put our money where our mouth is. And if you don't get a good return on investment, we're good for it, but we're confident in what we do, and people are happy. It's very rare that it's not the case. We don't bat 1,000, of course, but we're pretty good, I think.
Well, so just to conclude on the whole scholarship piece. So we focused on merit, which comes from the colleges, almost always guaranteed for 4 years with a certain GPA that your child maintains. Then there's scholarship, private scholarships that can fill gaps, but it's usually a 4-year process. You're doing this all the way through college. So just realize that it's pretty rare. And typically, like, I know the Cameron scholarship, that, like I said, the first deadline is May of junior year in high school, but most of the time, as Matt said at the beginning, you're looking for private scholarships starting now. Most private scholarships don't really care where you're going, right? They want to help you in a certain amount. They don't really care. So once they might send it directly to the college, or they might send you a check, but you don't have to know where you're going to start applying for private scholarships. Whereas merit is very school specific. So use the tool to find schools. Somebody asked, well, if your child's got GPA and test scores, plug them in when you're onboarding. We ask you can actually do searches and say, what are the best merit scholarship schools for my child, for your specific child? And we'll shoot all that up for you. And then you can look at them and see if they're a good academic and personal fit. So you're really shopping with affordability in mind. The academic and personal fits matter too, but so does the financial fit.
No doubt about it.
Yeah, the next webinar for appeals is December 14th. I'll pop it back in the chat again. But if you're on our list, which you are, if you're on this webinar, you'll get an invite. So just pay attention to your emails as well, because we'll send plenty of invites out to it, but I'll pop it in. I just put it in the chat again. That's the registration link.
No, and as always, guys, great questions, super engagement, and we always feel bad that we can't get to every single one, but it's because we got such an engaged group, and it's just not possible with the with the time we have, unfortunately. So like I said, continue to engage with us. I like book an hour tonight is what I would recommend, or sign up with us somehow, so you take advantage of that deal. But otherwise, show up for office hours, show up for our webinars, and we got you covered, I think, Peg, or at least we're doing our best out here, right?
Yep.
All right, everybody. Good night, Peggy. Good night. Get cozy out there. Enjoy your snowstorm.
Hopefully I'll get power back soon. I can turn off my
Get power
generator.
back soon. And thank you, everybody.
All right. Have a good one. Take care.